What is happening, AJ Game Dude here, and I've got to talk a little bit about anime here and there, just to kind of, keep some credibility that I do watch anime to some extent and things like that. Now, Isekai. Hate the genre so much. Hate it with a passion. There's so much, like, drowning in mediocrity that it almost comes out as being bad. And when there is something good, like Konosuba or the time I got reincarnated as a slime, which are so sort of rare and far and few between, so few and far between that it just isn't funny when you actually look at the genre as a whole. Unfortunately, that genre is getting an addition into the Oxford English Dictionary alongside a bunch of other Japanese words. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the term wasei eigo. So wasei eigo is actually the Japanese term for borrowed English language within the Japanese language. So say, for example, something like, there's like so many examples, this is not even funny, but I can't even think of one off the top of my head. Terebi, yeah. So terebi is the word for TV in Japanese, which originally comes from the word television, or again konbini, which comes from convenience store. So konbini is the Japanese word, convenience store, English sort of adaptation, if you will. That's the worst way of describing it. Due to actually, you know what? Oxford English Dictionary actually has a definition in it at the moment, so let's actually check that out, because I am very curious as to how it's been done. So, a Japanese genre of science or fantasy fiction featuring a protagonist who is transported to or reincarnated in a different, strange, or unfamiliar world. So, the idea is that they're transported or reincarnated in a world that is strange, different, or unfamiliar. Okay. Because I just looked at this and I was looking at this image of Dungeon Meshi here, which great show. I'm watching it at the moment. It's currently on its second cour and it's so entertaining. It's very funny, but it also got surprisingly serious lately. But anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about that yet. Effectively, the question asked here is, now I called it Dungeon Meshi because Delicious in Dungeon just sounds like a really retarded name. But is Delicious in Dungeon an isekai? And it says, by some definitions, it may be. According to Oxford Dictionary, it ain't, which is good. At least we can say for a fact that Dungeon Meshi is not an isekai. Pretty much the idea of someone being transported or reincarnated in a different, strange, or unfamiliar world. However, it's worth keeping in mind that the characters in Dungeon Meshi live in that world. They didn't die and go into a world they're unfamiliar with they didn't die and go into a different world. And also they didn't get transported into a different world. This entire world that the entire show is taking place in is the world in which they exist. So I don't know why that was put there when they literally linked the I suppose this is the whole IGN reporting thing going on, but yeah, sure enough. While isekai is colloquially understood in the US anime community, which, I think maybe the global anime community at this point, because the anime community is not that big or at least it didn't used to be that big, and now has kind of gotten significantly more popular over time, so I kind of get that. Classic fantasy shows wouldn't be considered an isekai like Record of Lodoss War, and contemporary shows like Dungeon Meshi and Frieren could be... What? Hold on. According to Tokyo-based Twitch streamer Selena, isekai means the story takes place in a totally different world from our real world, meaning classic fantasy shows fans wouldn't consider to be an isekai. Oh, okay, there we go. I kind of misread that for a second, but the previous sentence put the whole thing into context. Because isekai does, by all accounts, mean another world from which we exist in. That's interesting. Again, I suppose that's also the differentiation between the Japanese interpretation of a word and the Western anime community interpretation of a word. Something like Sakuga is a very good example. Where it's like how good the animation looks, that's the Western anime version, but the actual Japanese meaning for Sakuga is the frames that are used to create the actual animation. Interesting. Okay, so in the end, it just... Okay, so I thought that we finally kind of, just stuck to a meaning of, like, what Isekai is. And sure enough, like... I thought we kind of had, reached a point where we, like, now have a final sort of meaning. But nah, it's just more of, like, Western adaptation of a Japanese word. And whether or not you want to use it the Japanese way or the Western way. Either way, both sides of the coin, depending on who you're talking to, is going to be confused regardless of what you mean by when you call something an Isekai. So... yeah, I kind of wish that the genre didn't really exist, but I guess it is what it is. But it was, I feel like, colloquially named on both sides, to be completely honest. But yeah, it is what it is. That being said, let me know what you guys think about the word Isekai, the Isekai genre as a whole, and just kind of anything and everything that I've talked about in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 200 subs by the end of the year. And with all that said and done, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.